This is Mr. Cow. He's my 2014 X-Centre Parks van and I'm turning him into a micro camper. Hello and welcome to my video. In this video it's a bloody heat wave and it's too hot to be indoors, so I'm filming it outside with my assistant, who is not very helpful. Are you, Nelly? You're not helpful. So she is going to be moving around a lot in this video. I hope no one minds. Weirdo. Anyway, so I thought I'd head outside to film this one, especially since I'm talking about my mood board and what inspired me to create this van and the kind of visual direction I want to take it in. I really want to take my inspiration from nature and from what's outside. When I started this project, it was not a heat wave. It was definitely not shorts and t-shirt weather. It was winter. It was cold and bleak. But I had just come through the beautiful autumnal colours. And I'm very much a Richard Gilmore.
I am an autumn.
In that I love the colours in autumn. I think it's one of the best seasons for all that. I think that kind of palette is really what started. And I think it's interesting how actually with a design project, you can start with the smallest of things. And for me, it was really picking out that I wanted sort of burnt oranges, greens, dark browns. And like once you'd sort of pick those few things, it was really helpful to then sort of build up that sort of vision of where I wanted to take things. And obviously that tied in very well to the fact that the van is forest green. So I'm going to start with my sketches. Really, the first thing you want to think about is the scale of the space. So with the Kangoo, luckily I have got the long wheelbase, so I've got enough space for a full-sized bed in terms of length, and just about a queen-sized bed in terms of width. Not a queen, an American queen, an English double. Christ, dog, what are you doing? So I guess one of the things that to think about is what can I fit in that space? And so actually to just start off with, I found an image to use as an underlay. I sketched out the physical space of kind of, did loads of sketches just of the Kangoo itself with an empty bed. And I can use those sketches to figure out what sort of ideas I can have for the space. Sorry, Nelly is messing with the camera. You're not a very good production assistant. Stop it. Can you sit down? Can you settle down? I guess my brain and my design brain initially went to all sorts of different ways of how we can create folding contraptions to build out this space. I experimented with all sorts of different ideas of how I could have the bed fold up into the walls. I was like, oh, I could make these big cutouts. So then I was like, oh, I could do bump outs in the walls and cut big hatches. And then I started looking at all sorts of like twice a Hilux based pickup truck type builds and thinking about how I could cut big holes in the side and have opening compartments and pop tops, and your brain starts running wild with ideas. And of course, as a designer, I love and have so much fun sketching these out. But I've just got to bring myself back down to reality, which is that ultimately this project is me teaching myself how to build stuff, and I don't know how to build any of this stuff. And realistically, to build a foundation of skill, I need to do some KISS, some keep it simple stupid. And so ultimately I am constrained in terms of my budget, in that I can't really afford to go too crazy because I can't afford to have someone help me, essentially. I'm pretty much, you know, there's been a few things where my dad's helped me, but I'm pretty much on my own with this project. And so it's a case of how do you think of a system that you could use that is creative but also approachable. And so I had to think about all of that in terms of what sort of layout I wanted. And I guess the other thing that I've got to consider is how do I want to use the space as well? again, looping back to a point I raised in my last video, it's useful to rent a camper van for this. And I think that a fixed bed layout really suits me. I don't like the idea of having to make and build a bed every single time I use it. I think just having something that you can jump straight into is perfect for me. And so yeah, I think again, having that fixed bed layout again constrains you because you essentially have this sandwich of van. And so an obvious layout kind of begins to approach. So then it's what do you do with that obvious layout to make it stand out and to make it fit your mood and your vibe. I certainly want to try more challenging things in the future, but ultimately, like, even building this sort of simple layout is a huge challenge for me because I've not done this before. So in terms of the mood and kind of like setting the scene of some things that inspired me, there were definitely some builds that I saw from photos from the Kangoo Jamboree over in Japan that gave me some inspiration. I have a real sense of inspiration from a lot of the custom shops that operate out in Japan. Things like the Dean cross-country wheels, I just love them. I think they're so cool, and I think a lot of the builds that use some of those JDM retro futuristic parts really do inspire me. I really like the Flex Toyota Land Cruisers. And other things like the classic Defender Country. I was out hiking in the Lake Districts and we stumbled upon one, and I'm like, it's just such a vibe. And I think that injecting that kind of vibe into my ideas of how the Kangoo could look is really cool. Suzuki Jimny builds as well. I think there's some incredible, awesome stuff that people are doing with Jimneys that kind of inspires me. For Broncos as well, actually. I did think a lot about the kind of Bronco vibe. Certainly in terms of the colourways. You know, even things that are kind of dumb, like Lorelei Gilmore's Jeep. Hello, Smelly. Hello, have you come to bother me again? Oh. Hello, Papa. Is it hot? Should we go and cool down? Should we go and cool you down? You ready? When I'm coming up with these designs, I guess there's a lot of thinking about how am I maximising my space? How am I thinking about, is this the best possible use of a limited space? And then also considering, what material am I going to make this with? And then how do I use that material? Is that the best material to make this with? I think when you start asking yourself a lot of those questions, even in doing your research, you're seeing people use, say, like a thick ply to make a bed, and it's like, well, is that the best thing to make it with? How's that going to be affected with moisture? Like, surely that's going to absorb moisture and help create mold. And so, you know, ideas like that then lead you on to, well, how could I make a metal frame bed? I don't know how to weld, but I could buy a metal frame bed and cut it down to size. Then how would I fit it back together again? And how would I fit a drawer kitchen underneath that? And so I think sketching things out, especially if you have the 2D skill, but even if you don't, like, these sketches, if you're approaching a van build, are just for you, really. So they don't have to look pretty, though I always try to make mine pretty. They really help you picture out, you know, how could I do this, and answer all of these questions before you're stuck with them in the moment. I think it definitely helps with the build process, kind of having sketches to work from, ideas to work back to, and you can always go back to it and do more, you know, take a picture of your project in its current stage and then fill that out even more and consider that out even more. So those kind of skills have definitely helped me and moved me forward, and I think that applying that experience that I have to this project has been super helpful, and I hope it's more of a unique approach. It's certainly not an approach that I see much on YouTube in terms of what's out there. And it's a very Richard Hart approach to doing things. So there you go. Thank you. Oh dear. Now